Now, to start, I'd like to ask you all a few questions. First, who in here knows what the capital of Bangladesh is? All right. How about this next one? What is the largest national park in the United States? It's actually in Alaska. All right, another question. What is the highest point of elevation in Nevada? Now, one other thing I notice is that a lot of us don't know the answer to these questions. These are simple questions, yet they're difficult to answer. Not because they're trick questions, just because we don't know what the answer is. That's something that I wanted to change for my senior year. And that's what my project is all about. For my senior project, I decided to increase awareness and knowledge of the subject of geography through my project, Geography at EKA. What we'll be exploring in my presentation. First, what this project is all about, my reason for doing this project, how it began, everything I've done to meet my goals for this project, the impact my project has had, and the lessons I've learned. Now, one thing I've noticed over my years at EKA, all 12 of them, is that there isn't much exposure to the subject of world geography. Really, the only exposure kids receive to the subject is through their 8th grade class, World Geography. Projects are great, but the problem with this is that the subject doesn't benefit from having a strict curriculum, in which case students don't learn certain facts that they should probably know. But projects are still a great thing, so why not improve this situation through a project of my own? My primary goal for this project is to increase exposure our school receives to the subject beyond just the 8th grade class. Secondly, I wanted to inspire at least someone to do more independent research and want to learn more about our world and how it works. Because if I believe that if that happens, that would be better than if I didn't do the senior project at all. Now, my project had its roots at the end of last year, my junior year. I was at that point of my junior year where I was still trying to figure out what I would do for my senior project. There are those seniors that plan for years and they know what they're going to do. I was on the other boat. I didn't know. I played around with a few ideas, but it wasn't until the final weeks of school that a certain advisor came to me with the idea that I could build my project upon. That mysterious advisor was Mr. Gromlich. And what he showed me was the National Geographic Geography Bee. Now you may ask yourself, what is a geography bee? The Geography Bee is a nationwide competition where thousands of schools participate. Now this competition is set up by the National Geographic Corporation, and they're the same institution that puts out those magazines with the yellow border that it's about geography and such. Now this contest is designed to inspire kids to be curious about the world. This coincides perfectly with my original goals. Also, people are much more receptive to do anything, and in this instance learn about geography, if they can have fun while doing it. And that's what this competition would be, fun. So the summer goes by and returning back to school. Coming back to school for my senior year, I had a lot to do to prepare for the Geography Bee. And it was at this point that I decided that the Geography Bee would be the focal point of my project. It would be the big thing that I'd be doing. Things I needed to do to prepare for the bee. First, I needed to prepare the kids for what they were going to be doing, because I'd rather not have kids up on stage not knowing what they're doing, because that's uncomfortable for them and uncomfortable for everyone else as well. I need to figure out who's going to participate in the bee, and then there's the issues of scheduling and setting up the bee itself. To help kids prepare for the eventual GeoBee, my first course of action was to organize and put together a lesson plan for the middle school advisories. The Geography Bee's participation is 4th through 8th grade. So if you're younger than 4th grade or or if you're above 8th, you wouldn't be able to participate. So I wanted to focus on those groups with my lesson plans. In this lesson plan, students had to write a brief letter to an alien telling him about our planet. They had to be sure to include countries, regions, and continents. And they had to write this letter to someone who doesn't know anything about our planet. So they had to be very specific. Here's a few examples of the responses I got back. And on the back of the lesson plan, the letter, they had to draw a map of the world. Here's another one. Now, some of the responses I got back got very detailed in the letter as well as on the map, so I was very happy with the lesson plan. The impact of the lesson plan is multifaceted. It did a number of things. Firstly, this is the first thing that I did for my senior project that involved the student body, making this my introduction to the students. Secondly, these sessions built up my confidence. Although I know I'm capable of doing these things, there's always that uncertainty that lingers in the back of your mind. Conducting these lesson plans helped me realize that the sky is the limit, and I didn't need to be intimidated by the senior project. Lastly, going around to the middle school advisories, it built my connections list, as pretty much every advisor was willing to offer me help in one way or another. While working through the lesson plans with the middle school, the registration for the GeoBee was finalized. Registration is required for a school to participate, so getting that done was a major relief to me. It was then decided that the bee would take place mid to late January, as the bee needed to be completed by the beginning of February, otherwise our winner wouldn't be able to participate in the state competition. Now, the time finally came that I needed to figure out how to decide who will participate in the bee. This wasn't just a matter of picking students to participate, because thankfully National Geographic sent out materials after the bee registration. And in those materials was a preliminary test that I could use to figure out who will participate. So it had questions and all. The problem with this test is that it would require a lot of organization. And it would be similar to our state test, where everyone would have to be in the multi-purpose room. And for 8th grade alone, that's like 60 kids in 8th grade, and I'm trying to test the entire middle school. That'd be a very large endeavor. Instead, I needed a method that could reach much more kids much faster. After doing a little bit of research, the best way I thought was to go through an online test that everyone could take using their iPads. This worked out really well. Using Testmos, I set up a 25-question test that everyone in the middle school could take, and I'd get the results online. I then proceeded to administer the test to the entire middle school to see who would eventually participate in the bee, using their scores to decide. Now, this all takes place around the end of first semester. For the end of this first semester, we had to design a booth for a senior gallery walk to showcase what we've completed thus far. Although I had made headway, I didn't have much in the way of visuals to represent what I've completed thus far. Now, this issue wouldn't remain for too long because there was something big right around the corner. And that was the Geography Bee itself. Finishing up the testing, I finally compiled the list of the top 10, plus 2 alternates in case someone's not there the day of. So basically, I compiled who qualified for the bee, who's going to participate. I then announced the participants in the multi-purpose room, and then after this point, the actual preparation for hosting the bee begins. First things first, I needed to prepare the students for what was to come. I did this by running a practice of the bee, so that way the participants wouldn't be going into the competition blind. They'd know what they'd be doing, so they'd be less nervous on stage. They also needed to know what kind of questions were going to be asked. So without giving too much away, I set up a study guide for the participants to use to familiarize themselves with the general theme of the bee. Next, I needed to order prizes in time for the bee, because what's a competition without the prizes afterwards? This means that I needed to raise money for these prizes. Thankfully, our senior projects were supplemented by our chocolate sales, meaning that if I had a viable source of income to use for my senior project. Problem is, I needed to sell a lot more than I had been. The weeks approaching the bee, I needed to sell a lot of chocolate quickly, so that way I can order all the prizes just in time for the bee. Trophies and things needed to wait, as I needed to know the placements before I could get names engraved. Then, the long wait was over, and the bee had arrived. A few things that I needed to complete to make sure I was prepared to run the bee was make sure that the participants knew what they needed to do, so the general format of the bee, and that my judge and coordinator had all the materials they needed, so that way the bee would run smoothly on our end as well. After setup and a few minutes of extreme anxiety, and after the long hours of preparation, the bee took place on the 22nd of January in the multi-purpose room, right here. Mr. Webster acted as my judge and scorekeeper, and Mr. Gromlich as the bee coordinator, with yours truly as host. Now, the bee followed an elimination format similar to a spelling bee. The 10 participants who had 2 strikes. For every wrong answer, they were to receive a strike. 2 wrong answers, they're out. As the coordinator asked the questions and the rounds progressed, the participants were knocked out of the competition after receiving 2 strikes. So, here's some photos of the bee in progress. A few kids answering the questions. Some rounds worked a little bit differently, where the coordinator would ask one question and everyone would answer. As you can see with their holding up their whiteboards, everybody would have a whiteboard, they write down their answer and then show it. Eventually though, the competition was down to the last 2. After a few rounds of questions and a lot of excitement, our school champion was Bjorn. So Bjorn Rivera became our school champion that day for the geography bee. Courtney Murphy placed a strong 2nd place, and Adrian Tinoco rounded out the top 3 with 3rd place. And there they are. Looking back at the GeoBee, I felt it was a huge success because it accomplished both my original goals. For this project, and I had a ton of fun while doing it too. It granted exposure to all those classes that attended too, and it was an opportunity to inspire students to learn more about our world. The bee was a success for many other reasons as well. I'd like to give mention to my judge, Mr. Webster. For his help keeping score during the bee. Specifically though, how he kept track of every scoring detail while having to deal with markers that hardly worked. Now, it was a small complication, but it remained small only because Mr. Webster handled it like a pro. I'd like to also mention the bee coordinator, Mr. Gromlich, for his help throughout the whole process of setting up the bee, as well as his aid during. Next, I need to thank all of my contestants who participated in the geography bee. One of my main concerns for the bee would be that the questions would be too difficult, and that would have resulted in a very short competition. However, the top 10 did an excellent job in answering all the questions, and they have proven that we have some really intelligent kids here at EKA. My participants would please stand up and give them a round of applause. You guys did awesome. After the B, oh, also, I need to thank the audience too. Because the greatest event in the world is nothing without a great audience. So, after the B was a great sense of relief and triumph. As my great event took place, and it was a success. Not too long after, the participants were rewarded with a pizza party, and the 3 finalists were awarded their trophies. After this, though, I had ideas for what to do next, and one of those ideas was a field trip. Coming up with the idea with another senior, plans were being put into place for a field trip to the Las Vegas Natural History Museum. After doing research and contacting the museum, it was then determined that the trip would be very difficult to conduct due to a number of factors, namely logistics and scheduling, so the trip was eventually dropped. Though not all was lost. A field trip could be done, but not to the Natural History Museum. Instead, Mr. Gomlick gave me the great idea of conducting a field trip to the Geography B State Championship. Now, this was quite auspicious because it coincided with the fact that our school champion, Bjorn Rivera, had qualified to participate in the state competition, meaning that we could host a field trip to see the State B and support our school champion in the process too. After providing the middle school with the permission slips and scheduling the bus, the field trip departed school and we arrived at the Faith Lutheran High School and Middle School where the B took place, and we watched a decent amount of the finals. The field trip wasn't perfect, there were a few issues, but we still went, we saw what an actual state level competition looks like, and had some fun while going. So the field trip was a success. Here's a few photos of the field trip. This is the auditorium that we were in. And then finally, this was the B underway. Due to scheduling issues, we weren't able to watch the whole thing, but I still think it was a great and positive experience, and I'd do it again. The school would be, okay. Now, the biggest impact that I think I could have on the school would be through the Geography B itself. Proving it to be a successful event, one thing I do hope comes from this project is that the school will pick up this event to be ran annually, as I believe this is a very important event for our world geography class. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen, but I hear good things. My resources. Mr. Gromlick, for all the assistance he's offered to me, and also with ideas for my project and what to do. Mr. Webster, with all the information and advice he's given me over the course of the year and beyond, and as well as templates for lesson plans he's loaned to me. And lastly, National Geographic, as they're the ones who set up and created all the materials I needed to run a Geography B at our school. They were a primary part of my project. Special thanks. I'd like to again mention Mr. Webster for all the help and support he's provided to me, not just senior year, but all the years I've been in his class. I want to thank the entire staff because throughout the course of my project, one thing I've noticed is that staff here at EKA fosters a culture of success. They want to see you succeed, and they'll do everything in their power to make sure that happens for you. I'd like to thank National Geographic for organizing the Geography B every year. I want to thank my fellow seniors for all the support and help they offer. And lastly, I'd like to give a special shout out to my homie G, Mr. G, wherever he may be. Because without Mr. Gromlick, this project would have not been possible. He was the original one who mentioned to me this subject and mentioned to me the B. I never even heard of this before he came to me about it. So a very special thanks to Mr. Gromlick. Lessons learned. Firstly, would be to try your best to stay on task. You can make your senior year much less stressful by simply staying on task. And that could mean logging every day, or making sure you have a goal set for this day, or this week, or even this month. How stressful the senior project experience varies, and a lot of it varies on you. Second would be, if you're passionate about something, don't be afraid to explore that passion. The senior project requires that you care about what you're trying to do. You need to have some personal stake in it, otherwise it's just another grade. Do your best to turn your passion into your senior project. Because if you don't care about what you're doing, the senior year is going to be much more strenuous than it needs to be. Lastly, I learned that no matter how much at times I may doubt myself and my ability to see this project through, that I'm still capable of what I'm presenting to you right now. I think what I'm trying to say is that if you find yourself wondering how you're going to be able to get everything in on time, how you're going to pass that final, or how you're going to make it all the way to the stage to tell everyone what you accomplished, like all the seniors are doing now. If you have that grit to keep moving forward, if you have that determination to keep moving forward, then it's possible. Thank you.